Welcome back to Le Bonne Vie Champagne TV to our connoisseurs. This is part 3 in our 5-part series looking at the sub-regions of Champagne. And the focus for this month is the Vallée de la Marne. We've already toured through the prestigious regions of the Côte de Blanc, famed for its mineral Chardonnay, and the Montagne de Reims, which is the heart of the luscious red Pinot Noir of the appellation. So what is the characteristic of the Vallée de la Marne and what is its varietal specialisation? The Vallée de la Marne is important for Champagne by virtue of its size. It is the largest of the growing sub-regions with some 11,500 hectares under vine. However, the Vallée de la Marne does not draw the same raised eyebrows and kudos as the vineyards of the Côte de Blanc or the Montagne de Reims, and that's largely because it's generally without many Grand Cru villages, with the exception of the very well-regarded Aï. Furthermore, the region is planted mainly with the Pinot Meunier grape, and very little amounts of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, which are generally regarded as the two noble grapes within Champagne. But this region is far too important to put in the corner. Many of the Grand Marques who require huge quantities of grapes to keep up with global demands for their brands and their wine source their fruit from growers in the Vallée de la Marne. The Meunier grape may not have the reputation of a noble grape, but it is still a critically important varietal in the region, adding character and perfume to a young cuvée, not to mention body and richness. It makes up almost a third of all grapes planted within the Champagne appellation, due to the majority of Champagnes being sold around the world being non-vintage cuvées where the Meunier grape takes pride of place. This sub-region is not just a very important workhorse of an asset to Champagne production, producing a large proportion of that hardy Meunier grape, but it's also incredibly picturesque. The Marne River, which flows through this province, is some 525 kilometres long and joins the Seine in Paris, but it's most beautiful where it winds its way through the vineyards of the Vallée de la Marne. The shape of the valley has actually been created by the river, which has gently carved its path through the region over many thousands of years. But the terrain and the subsoil have been influenced by two other significant geological events. The first is an upward push of the Alps, which is in the east of France, and secondly, the reverse effect is the sinking of the basin in Paris to the west, and you have rather a seesaw action with the soil. As a result of these movements, the chalk bed which sits so close to the surface in the Côte de Blanc and other parts of Champagne has been forced further underground. Now in the valley we have a mix of clay, sand and other soil types which create a differing growing environment for the vines. The variation in soil type suits Meunier varietal, and that's probably why 75% of the vines are propagated within this area. But the other reason why Meunier is so vastly planted here is probably and most commonly due to the risk of this cold air that can be trapped between the two slopes, the valley within the rivers, and Pinot Noir and the Chardonnay, which aren't nearly as hardy, would be susceptible to spring frosts, which can severely damage a harvest. The hardier Meunier buds later than the other varietals when the worst of the cold weather has passed, allowing it a greater chance of survival in this unique area. The Vallée de la Marne and the Meunier grape deserve a closer look. There are some really interesting Pinot Meunier dominant champagnes now being produced in the region by some very talented grower champagne houses who are willing to challenge traditions. But let's talk about the two wines that are coming out to you this month. Of course, the focus being on the Vallée de la Marne, and we have Henri Giraud and Voiren-Jumel. First up, the house of Voiren-Jumel. Now, Patrick and Alice are fourth generation to work the vines at the estate, which has vines planted across both the Vallée de la Marne and also in the Côte de Blanc. One might say it was a rather fortuitous marriage further up the line between Charles Voirin and Françoise Jumel, who married merging their land parcels into one family holding in 1968. The current heirs, Patrick and Alice, brother and sister, now work the family business together, producing very elegant champagnes from the 11 hectares of vines that the family own. We are specifically looking at the Blanc de Noirs this month. And as you may know, the Maison is actually located in the heart of the Côte de Blanc, in the Cremant region. But we are looking at the Blanc de Noirs where 100% of the fruit from this cuvée is coming from the premier cru village of Maru-sur-Aille, where the Bilcar Salmon Maison is also located. Now, cépage of the wine, of course, 100% Pinot Noir, not the Pinot Meunier grape, which is most commonly grown. The wine has been aged for 2 to 3 years, a negligible dosage in the wine as the house likes natural wines that show the purity of the fruit. It's an incredibly fine, slow-moving mousse on the Voiren-Jumel with a soft pink tinge in the colour. I've got to say, I'm not normally enamoured with 100% Pinot Noir wines. I find them a little bit one-dimensional, but I was really pleasantly satisfied with the aroma on this wine. Subtle strawberry notes and some red apple are complemented by toasty notes reflecting the body of the wine. Over time, it's also showing more minerality. It's surprisingly fresh on the palate, with a nice balance between a round, full mouth feel, but a presence of acid. It's not driving, but it still makes itself known. And sometimes I feel that Blanc de Noirs lose some drive and they feel a bit flabby, a bit flat in the mouth. The acidity really starts to fall away, but this is a really lovely wine. It's rich, it's full-bodied, and it's a very good example of a 100% Pinot Noir wine. I actually really enjoyed drinking this champagne. And I've got to say, I also really enjoy the Blanc de Blanc from the Maison. This is a solid grower champagne house, and Patrick and Alice should be making mum and dad very proud. Now, the other house that we feature this month is Henri Giraud. I find these wines really interesting. They're very bold and occasionally challenging for consumers, and I like that. I also like the contemporary marketing of the Maison. The packaging is super sexy with this Maison, these gorgeous Styrofoam boxes which are both stylish and practical. I'm actually heading off to the Maison for the first time next week, and I have to say, I'm quite excited about that. I really want to taste the wines in the vineyard. When you're tasting champagne out of a vineyard, and even as far as Australia, there can be a loss of freshness when the cuvées land in a foreign place. And depending on where they're stored, how quickly the wines are turned over or consumed, so to speak, then the wines can lose a little of their vigour and a little of their poise. Being more Pinot Noir dominant and adding to that the use of wood in the winemaking Henri Giraud, it does help to strengthen the wine's resolves, but I am very excited to see the wines with the winemaker in the house. Now, the house favours the Pinot Noir varietal, and of the 35 parcels of Grand Cru land in Aille, 26 parcels are dedicated to the noble red grape of the Pinot Noir, whereas only 9 parcels are planted with Chardonnay. The Giraud family settled in the town of Aille, the former centre of Champagne, in the beginning of the 17th century. So naturally, this is a house steeped in history and has been a respected maison in Champagne circles since the very early days of the business of Champagne. They turn out very bold, very expressive wines, and the 12th generation, Claude Giraud, is now at the helm. The house for me produces cuvées with big personality and a great deal of power. The combination of the Grand Cru Pinot Noir plus barrel aging make for quite a robust champagne. And the wine in focus this month is Hommage, and of course that is no different. We have 70% Pinot Noir, 30% Chardonnay in the cépage, which is quite reflective of the land holdings of the Maison. The wine is initially vinified in a stainless steel tank, and then characteristically of the house, the wine is matured in small oak casks. It's slightly richer, slightly deeper in colour than the previous wine, the Voiren-Jumel, but I have to say, Henri Giraud wines never disappoint. The Pinot Noir dominance and oak maturation show power and depth on the nose. For me, this wine is toasted almonds, it's apple crumble, it's very delicate aromas of nougat. In the mouth, big, rich vinous. The memory and power of this wine leave quite an impact for several minutes after swallowing the wine. The nutty, spicy, red fruit, big bold flavours linger on the palate for quite some time after you've swallowed the wine. You might feel that this wine is a little bold to enjoy as an aperitif on its own, so I would recommend having one glass prior to the meal, and then to fully appreciate its character, I would drink the remainder of the bottle with food. I would definitely make sure that this wine is served in a wine glass or a larger tulip shape such as our Bonne Vie champagne glasses, and I would bring it up a few degrees above norm, so 11, 12, even up to 13 degrees in temperature. I would partner the wine with something gamey. Duck or poultry would be perfect to match the depth and the body and the power of this particular champagne. There's a lot of debate in Champagne about the place of oak barrel aging or oak influence in Champagne, given that Champagne is such a delicate wine. But personally, I like this style of wine. And every now and then, I like to drink a big, bold wine. And what I say to you is, we don't generally just drink one wine style. So why should we only drink one Champagne style? These wines are expressive, they're characterful, and ultimately, bottom line is they're really well made, and they make a great partner for cuisine, for food. So that is it for our virtual visit to the Vallée de la Marne for this month. Make sure you join us for the next episode as we explore the Orbe, and in my opinion, the breeding ground of talent in the Champagne region. I hope you enjoy the wines that we've distributed for you this month, and I look forward to seeing you again at our next member event. Bye for now.